Paramount Technologies, and I'll be conducting the eProcurement webinar today. What we're going to look at and walk through is the eProcurement process that's available within the Workplace application. We will look at requisition entry, approval of requisitions, review to create purchase orders from those fully approved requisitions. We'll then look at receiving and invoice matching. So we're going to essentially walk through the eProcurement process, use several different users in order to be able to do that, and show you some additional functionality while we're in as those users. And these webinars that we do on a weekly basis are designed to be high-level overviews of the functionality that's available within Workplace. We do integrate to many back-office financial and ERP systems, and some of those solutions have different functionality available within them based upon what's offered in that back-office solution. So it's simply impossible on these weekly webinars to cover every single thing that we do. But you will get a really good idea of the look and feel of the solution, the overall functionality of the solution, and then if you need a one-on-one demonstration where you'd like to look at specific functionality for your environment, your back office system, and be able to interact and ask questions, we are certainly welcome to do those for you. Now, there is a question window as well as a chat window available with the webinar. If you want to enter questions as I go along, you're welcome to. I will hold off on answering those questions until the very end of the presentation, but again, feel free to enter them as you think of them, and we'll take a look at that once we're done with the overall demo. There is also a chat window that's available. If you are encountering any difficulties or problems, then you can use that chat window. I'll do my best to monitor it and see if I can assist you if needed. Workplace is a web-based application. All of the users that log in do so via their browser. There's my address bar and URL at the top left-hand side of the screen. I'll enter my username and password, and we're going to log in as Foy. Now, I'm using SQL Server authentication on my image here. We also support NT authentication via Active Directory for single sign-on purposes. So if you're using NT authentication in your environment, that is supported for logging in, and we'll now log into the Workplace application. When you log into Workplace, you start off on your home page. Your home page can have announcements that you've set up for the user to be able to view. It will have your outstanding transactions, which will show all of the transactions that still need some type of action for this user. And then if you're using catalogs or punching out to vendors, then you've got a shop area here on the screen that will allow you to immediately begin using those functions to create your requisitions. So this is an overall view of the functionality that a user has access to. You can use your menu options over here on the left-hand side to narrow down this view. So if we click on requisition, now you are only seeing outstanding transactions that represent requests. And again, these are open transactions. At least one line on the requisition still needs to have something done with it. And when that's the case, you'll see the requisition here. You'll see a name of the requisition, a status of the requisition. If different lines have different statuses, you'll see where those are in the process. If they're waiting for approval, you'll see who they're waiting for approval from. And if you need more information or more details on any of these transactions, you can click on them, open them up, and there's additional information and additional details that can be viewed for each of those requisitions. You've also got this query right here called Find Requisition. That query allows you to go back in and find any and all requisitions that you have access to as a user. So that would certainly be your outstanding transactions that are already showing up here, your historical transactions that have been fully processed, and any other requisitions in this example that you're allowed access to. As an example, if you're a department manager and you have the ability to view requisitions for other members of your department, then you can use this query here to look up and find those. So as a user, you always have the ability to go back in and see where your requisitions are, what has happened to them, what needs to happen to them as they're going through each of the different steps. I'm going to click on Requisition Entry, and this is the requisition entry form for Foy as a user. These are the fields that we have chosen to make available to this user to be able to view and enter information into. These are not all of the fields that are available. There are other fields like shipping method and payment terms that I have hidden from this particular user. And also in your environment, the names of the fields may be different depending upon your back office, financial, or ERP system than what are showing up here on my screen. But no matter what, you've always got the ability to hide fields. So if there are fields on the screen that do not apply in your environment, maybe the user doesn't know the information, you don't want them to see the information, or they just typically do not enter the information, then you can hide these fields. If you hide fields, they are removed from the screen. The user cannot see them and will not even know that they're there. You can also make fields read-only. An example of a read-only field is ship to. You can view the information, but the field is grayed out. You cannot access it or change it. You can default values into fields. So if there's a constant value for a user that you use all the time or most of the time, default that value in. That field's already populated, and you wouldn't need to enter anything into that field unless you were going to requisition for a different value in that particular example. You've also got required fields up here towards the top of the screen. You see that item description and quantity have an asterisk next to them. That indicates a required field, meaning you must enter information into those fields before you can successfully submit the requisition. And item description and quantity are the minimum required fields. So if all a user knows is a description of what they want and the quantity, that would be all that they would need to enter. Somebody else along the line can provide the additional information and the additional details before the purchase order can be created. And if you want to make other fields required, you can. And any required fields will have an asterisk next to them just like these do. And again, you must enter information into those fields before you can successfully submit the requisition. There's also quite a few fields on the screen that have a magnifying glass next to them. If you click on the magnifying glass to the right of the field, or if you double-click in the field to the left of the magnifying glass, you'll do a lookup to another source of information and be able to use that information when you come in to fill out the requisition. So that source for fields like item and unit of measure, site ID, vendor, GL account, ship to, is typically your back office, financial, or ERP system. No matter what the source, it's allowing the user to have access to that information when they come in to fill out their requisitions. You can restrict and control that information, so you can limit a user to only have access to certain items or certain vendors or certain GL accounts. That way they cannot accidentally make a selection that you don't want them to be making, and they also do not need to search through unnecessary information in order to find what it is that they're looking for. So you have the ability to control those pieces of information that they have access to within the zooms, as well as the controls that we mentioned about all of the other fields. So hide, read-only, required, default, as well as the restrictions of the lookups or zooms are all by user. So individual users, depending upon who they are, what they do, or where they work within an organization, have different access and different views to information when they come in to enter their requisitions. All right, so that's a little bit about those controls that you have in place. What we're going to do next is step back out here and start entering items on a requisition. I'm going to show you 4 or 5 different ways that you can use to enter items on a requisition. In your environment, you might use all of the methods. You might only use one of the methods. Different users might use different methods, but as long as you meet the required fields on the requisition, then there'll be valid lines that you would be able to submit. And we're going to start off by using internal catalogs. Internal catalogs are ones that you set up and maintain on your own. You've either gotten a download from the vendor or you've manually entered the information to create the catalog. Since they are your catalogs, they can have whatever items you want to have on them. So they could be by vendor, by department, by location. You pick an appropriate icon to represent that catalog. Click there, and you're now going to be able to see pictures and descriptions and pricing of items. You can categorize items, search for and find items. You can click on an item and see additional details and additional information. Add those items to your cart that you want to request. Continue shopping either from that same catalog or from other catalogs. Add more items to your cart. And when you're done shopping, click on Create Order Requisition. And those 2 items are now pulled onto the requisition from the shopping cart of that internal catalog. You've also got external catalogs. External catalogs are done via a process called punch-out. Punch-out is an open industry standard, not something that we invented, not something that we wrote, but it's an open standard that allows you to leverage relationships that you have with your vendors so that the vendor will maintain the catalogs for you. You can shop your vendor's site with your items, your catalogs, and your pricing and pull those items into the requisition. I have Office Depot as an example of that. I'll click on Office Depot, and this will go out to the Office Depot website. So again, these are your items, your catalogs, your pricing that you can use your menu options to go find. You can search for items by keyword or by item number. Once you find the items that you want, indicate the quantity of those items, add those items to your cart, keep shopping, adding more items to your cart from other options here. When you're done, check out. And when you've checked out, it'll pull that item onto the requisition. There's our 5 dozen ballpoint stick pins from Office Depot. That order is not complete yet. That order will not be complete until a purchase order is created. And when the purchase order is created, it'll be sent electronically to the vendor. That will complete the transaction, and then they will ship you those items. You can also use a shopping list. A shopping list is a predefined list or template of items that you can set up. These are typically for regularly requested items. So it's a monthly office supply order. It's a job, event, project, or even vendor that you request from regularly. These lists can be set up by user, by department, or made available system-wide. If you have access to the list, you'll see it in the drop-down here. Click to select the list that you want to use, and here are the items that we would typically request when we need something for a computer. So this time we'll get 2 of those, 1 keyboard, 1 LaserJet printer, enter quantities into those fields, and load those items. Those items are now loaded onto the requisition. You can shop other lists as needed and continue to add items to the requisition, but that's a quick and easy way, especially for regularly requested items, to be entered on the requisition. You can also import requisitions. You can import them in a CSV template format that we provide. You can duplicate requisitions, pull up a past requisition, duplicate it as new, make any changes, additions, or deletions, and submit that requisition. You can come into the body of the requisition. You can use the item field here. When you do a lookup on the item field, you are typically doing a lookup to an item master. So that could be inventory items, but that does not have to be inventory items. It could simply be a list of items that you maintain to allow users to find and search through, and then once you find the items that you're looking for, click on them to select them, and that'll pull in the item number, the item description, the unit of measure, the last price. There's also a default GL account code that pulled over. All I need to do is enter my quantity. I've met my required fields, and now that's a valid line on the requisition. And finally, if you cannot find the item in a catalog, in an item master, in a shopping list, you can always just simply type in what you need. And if you needed cleaning services and 2 hours of cleaning services, type that in. You've met the required fields. That's a valid line on the requisition that could be submitted. And now there are 8 lines on the requisition entered in several different ways. All these lines are valid because we've met the required fields. Some lines have different information. Some lines have an item number. Other lines do not have an item number. Some lines have a vendor. Other lines do not have a vendor. They have a GL account code. Other lines may not have a GL account code. The General tab down here at the bottom of the screen applies to the line item that's highlighted. So you can have a different department, a different vendor, a different GL account for each line. As a user that is entering the request puts in what they need, they do not have to be concerned about, is everything for the same vendor? Is everything for the same department or the same general ledger account code? All they have to be concerned about is what do they need. We'll handle the approval routing processes so we can approve by line. So each line will get to the appropriate person or people. We'll handle the creation of the POs. So yes, if a requisition has more than 1 vendor on it, it will create more than 1 purchase order. So again, all the line information can be different as you enter it. There is a mass line change capability down here at the bottom. So of course, if there are common values needed for all lines, we're not going to make you go to each and every line. Click on the mass line change, go to the field that you want to have a common value, select that value, and then update all the lines on the requisition with that value. So now they all have the same site ID in my demo example. On the requisition, there's also more details that you can add. There's a requisition name field. So everything on this requisition was for the same purpose: monthly office supply order, job, event, project, a remodel of an office on the 3rd floor. Then you can type that in. You've identified the requisition. At a glance, other users will know what the requisition is for, and it's also a field that you can look up and query on as well. In addition to the name of the requisition, there's also line item comments. There's a vendor comment where I can say I need these as soon as possible. That vendor comment can be viewed by any of the other users who have access to the requisition. The vendor comment can also flow over to the purchase order. It appears on the line item entry detail of the purchase order and could print on the purchase order depending upon your setup and requirements. You've also got internal comments. Internal comments are typically used for additional information, longer descriptions, special instructions, or even justification of why you're making the request. So you can say that these are for the office that is next to the elevator, just down from the stairwell, whatever else it is that you need to say. By additional information and additional details, these are line item comments. So if you come up here to your 1 gigahertz processor, you'll see that the vendor comment and internal comment fields are blank, and that you can have a totally different vendor comment as well as a totally different internal comment there. And you'll see that icons appear next to those lines. That's how you know that there's a comment associated with them. You've also got header comments up here on the upper right-hand side. Click, select from predefined purchasing comments, or manually enter your own comments. Those comments apply at a header level, meaning that they apply to the entire requisition. In addition to comments, you've also got blank paper clips next to each line, and a blank paper clip up here on the upper right-hand side. Click on the blank paper clip. Choose the files that you have access to: Word document, PDF file, Excel spreadsheet. Describe that, and then attach that to the requisition. You'll see that the icon changes to a paper clip around a piece of paper. That's how you know that there's an attachment there. Other users can view that icon, view those attachments, and get the information that's been provided. You've also got header attachments. Click up here on the upper right-hand side. Choose the appropriate file that applies to the entire requisition. Describe that, and now that is attached to this requisition as well, and the icon has changed there also. So there is now a requisition that has plenty of information on it, additional details added both at the line level and at the header level, and that requisition is ready to submit. But before I submit this, just a couple of other things. We are entering a requisition that will create a purchase order. We also do have a type of requisition called check request. That requisition is for non-PO invoices. That is a request to pay a vendor without a purchase order being associated with it. Very similar to what we've just done, but again, a different end result. You've got inventory replenishment type requisitions. So if you are maintaining inventory, then we can look at the mins, the maxes, and the order up 2 levels and create a requisition to replenish inventory. You've got vendor contracts. Vendor contracts are used to set up and enforce pricing with a vendor or to track spending with a vendor. And a vendor contract would allow you to enter requisitions, track them against that contract, make sure you're getting the appropriate pricing based upon those contracts that have been established. So again, those are different types of requisitions. They're very similar to what we're doing here. The end result is different, and I just wanted to point those out so you know that there is additional functionality that we do offer, but very similar to part of the process that we are walking through. There's also the ability to do GL distribution, so you can distribute individual lines on a requisition to multiple general ledger accounts. We've got inventory information where if you wanted to fulfill items from an inventory that you have on hand rather than create a purchase order, we can do that in many different instances as well. But again, same general look and feel of the requisition, just in a different end result. So we'll go ahead and submit this requisition. When you submit a requisition, it'll route for approval based upon the details that have been entered on the requisition. There's unlimited levels of approval. There's unlimited approval paths, So you can make sure that all of the items on the requisition are fully approved before they're ever available to create a purchase order in this particular example. You can route for approval by the total amount of the entire requisition, which is all the lines added together. You could route for approval by the amount of the line. So it's possible that each line on this requisition could go to a different approver or through a different approval path based upon the amount of the line. In addition to amount, you could also route for approval by department, set ID, vendor, priority, GL account, ship to, item, item class, vendor class, the person's supervisor, and more can be used to route for approval as well. So you could route to the department manager because of the department. You could route to IT because it was computer hardware, computer software related. You could route to finance because of the amount. As we'll look at in a moment, you could route to the controller or the CFO because an item is over budget. Again, unlimited levels of approval, unlimited approval paths. So you can make sure that all of the items are fully approved before they're ever available to create the purchase order. Now I'm still logged in as the requester. The requester can always view the details. The details will show you a status of the requisition, the approval path of the requisition, and you can see that Lisa and Bob need to approve this particular line. Again, there's unlimited levels of approval, so if there were more than the 2 approvers that I have in my demo, you'd see the entire list of approvers here. The arrow in the bold print indicate the pending approver, which is who we're waiting on to approve this before it can move on through the process. You've also got alternate approvers. Alternates can approve in the place of the original approver. And if an alternate had been enabled or activated, you would see who that was here, and you would know that someone could approve in Lisa or Bob's place if they were out of the office or unavailable for any reason. You've also got budget information. Now, we have 4 or 5 different ways to compare requisitions to budgets. We integrate to many different project systems, and with many of those project systems, we can look at the project budgets. We can look at GL budgets, so you can see the budget based upon the general ledger account and compare the requisition to the budget at that time. We have our own budget manager that allows you to set up and maintain budgets within our application. But with any of those, you're able to compare requisitions to budgets, view the budget details, route for approval if you're over budget, and that makes sure that your users see where you are within the budget as the items are flowing through the process. So again, that is functionality that's available within the application. And at the bottom is a log, date, time, user, and action of everything that happens to the requisition as it flows through the process. So you're always going to be able to see where your requisitions are, what has happened to them, what needs to happen to them as they're going through the different steps of the process. All right, so we're going to log out as our requester, and we're going to take a look at email notifications that go out. So if you'll bear with me just one second, I need to get the email to come over here, and then we'll take a look at the email notification. So we send out many different emails throughout the process. So you're always going to be able to know where your requisitions are, what has happened to them, what needs to happen to them as they're going through each of the different steps. The first email that we're going to send out is one that's going to go to the approver, letting them know that they have requisitions that are pending their approval. So the email has all of the details of the line items. So you're going to be able to see the information about the requisition lines. You're going to be able to see the comments. There are links in the email. If you click on the links in the email, it will take you into Workplace and allow you to approve or disapprove those lines. You can also reply to this message. If you reply to the message, there are brackets in the email. If you put a Y into the bracket, then you're going to approve that line. If you put an N into the bracket, you're going to disapprove that line. And you can enter notes to the requester, and those notes will go in an email and also appear on the log for that line. So you can actually approve or disapprove by sending this reply and not need to log into the Workplace application. You do still need to be a user of Workplace in order to get these emails and be able to do the approval in that manner. But again, you do not have to log in if you approve in that way. There's also alerts that you can establish. Alerts are based upon a number of hours. So if you still have items that are pending your approval after 24, 36, 48, whatever number of hours you determine, you'll get another email. The email looks just like this, and it's a reminder that you have items that are pending your approval. You can also approve via mobile devices. So via the mobile device, you can log in and do your approvals that way. Log into the browser. You can see how many items that you have pending your approval. You can see the requisitions that contain those items along with comments and attachments. You can drill down and see the lines that make up those requisitions with comments, attachments, and you can approve, disapprove with notes from the browser on your mobile device. And again, that's an option that you have to be able to approve your requisitions. You can also log in via your standard browser. So if we log in as Lisa, you're going to be able to see that Lisa has a to-do list. She has 10 items that are pending her approval. Click there and you get a load screen. The load screen allows you to be selective by these values, or if you leave those values blank and click on loads, you'll load all items that are pending your approval. You load those items by requisition, expand the requisition that you want to work with, and there's your comment and attachment indicators at the header, comments and attachments at the line, line details, general tab information, the actual comments themselves. So an approver has a view to all of the information that is currently a part of the requisition, and they can use that in order to make their decisions about what they're going to do with those items. Approvers can also have the ability to edit requisitions. You do not have to allow your approvers the ability to edit requisitions. If all you want them to do is approve or disapprove, that's perfectly fine. If you do allow them to edit, they can come into the requisition and they could add or change information. So we could add a vendor here, and that's now a part of the requisition. There is a change log that can record those changes, who made them, when they made them, what they changed it from, and what they changed it to. So you'll always have an audit trail of the changes that are made. There's also a note to the requester. These little icons right here, if you click on that icon, then you can enter a note to the requester and you can tell them about any changes that you made, any comments that you have, as well as any instructions that you want to provide. Those go in an email and also appear on the log for those items. When you're ready to approve, you can approve all or disapprove all, which affects everything on the screen. You can approve or disapprove entire requisitions, or as we'll do in our example, you can approve or disapprove individual lines. Click on the check mark to approve. Click on the minus button to disapprove. If you disapprove a line, use your note to the requester, and you can use the note to requester to tell them why you disapproved it. So we'll tell them to find a cheaper printer and resubmit, and that note will go in an email and also appear on the log for that item. When you're ready, click on Process. Any items that you approved will go now to the next approver in line. Any items that you disapprove will go back to the original requester, and any items that are fully approved will now be available for review, which is where we'll go here in a moment in order to create the purchase orders. Last thing on approvers is alternates. Slide this little button over there, and you've now enabled your alternates. You're not picking who they are. You're simply enabling them so that someone can approve in your place while you're out of office or unavailable for any reason. You can also schedule your alternates. You can schedule them with from and to dates, and they can approve during those periods of time. And if you forget to enable your alternates or you do not schedule your alternates, a system administrator can activate the alternates on your behalf. Alternates can approve in the place of the original approver, keep items moving through the process if someone's out of the office or unavailable for any reason. More emails can go out. You're notified that requisitions were disapproved, why they were disapproved, and a link in that email. You're notified when requisitions are approved with the details, the comments, and the links there as well. And again, the next step in the process is review. The reviewer is notified that there's items that are pending their review, details, comments, notes, and links there. So those are 3 more emails that can go out to the different users, keeping them up to date with what's going on with their requisitions as they flow through the process. The next user we're going to use is Ben. Ben is my reviewer. The reviewer is typically a buyer or a purchasing agent. They don't have to be. That's just their typical role within an organization. But they should be somebody who knows what information belongs on the requisition, because once they finish and process the session, it's going to create purchase orders. So Ben's got 37 items that are pending his review under his to-do list. Click there, you get a load screen. A load screen allows you to be selected by these values or ranges of those values. Leave them all blank and you'll load everything, or be selective about what you load. You'll only load those requisitions, load them by requisition, expand the requisition that you want to work with. And here is your comments and attachments at the header, comments and attachments at the line. You've got your line details, your general tab information, the actual comments themselves. You can also edit as a reviewer, come in and enter information that might be missing. So you can come in and add the missing information, scroll through these items and change or add anything that you need to on each of the lines. Again, the change log will record those changes, who made them, when they made them, what they changed it from, and what they changed it to. You still have your note to the requester. Click there. Use that note to tell them whatever you want to tell them. In this example, we'll say that it will be there on Monday, and that note will go in an email and also appear on the log for that item. When you're ready to order, you can order all. You can order by requisition. You can order individual line items by clicking on the check mark. You can leave items on hold with the pause button. You can cancel items with the minus button. If you cancel an item, use your note to the requester. Type in manually why you canceled it, just like we've done before, or you can use predefined notes, like more information is required for this item. That will go in an email and also appear on the log. And click on Process. You will now create purchase orders. Depending upon your back office, financial, or ERP system, the purchase order could be created there. We also have our own web-based purchase order module available as well. Wherever the POs are created, they are now purchase orders in that purchase order system. So you could go open up that PO system, view, print, and release the POs to be sent to the vendor. You can also view or print them here within the Workplace application. So you can click on View Print. It goes out and grabs the PO information, and there's now an Adobe Acrobat PDF format of that purchase order. You could add logos, add terms and conditions, or even change the layout to suit your needs and requirements. You've also got the PO here, 2421. That was our Office Depot punch-out purchase order. That did create the purchase order, but it also sent the purchase order electronically to the vendor. That completes the transaction. And now they will ship you those items. And you also have the ability to automatically email the purchase order to the vendor as well. And when you do that, they'll get it in a PDF format, just like we looked at a moment ago. So that is requisitioning all the way through the creation of a PO. More emails do go out. When the session is processed, you're notified that the session was processed with the POs that were created and any notes that may have been entered there. When items are canceled, you're notified that they're canceled. And both these emails go out to the requester with the details and the links there as well. Next step in the process is receiving. I'm going to allow my original requester to do the receiving. It does not have to be the original requester. It can be whoever you need or want it to be. You provide them that functionality. They will have the receiving menu option over here on the left-hand side. Click there. We'll do a receiving wizard, which is quick and easy for the user. If you know the PO number, you can enter it. If you don't know the PO number, you can search for and find it. Load that. There's our 40 12-foot white phone cords that we ordered. If you got all 40 of them shipped to you, leave the quantity shipped as 40. If you only got 30, change the quantity shipped to 30, leaves the PO open with the remaining 10 and does a partial receipt. You've got comments that you can enter. You've got attachments, so you'll be able to attach a scanned image of the packing slip if you've got that. And now that's a part of this session. And when you're ready, click on the checkbox and click on Process, and that will now create the receipt for that action. Once you've done the receipt, then it's available for invoice matching. We'll have a different user do our invoice matching. So we'll log in as Phil, and Phil has the ability to do invoice matching. We'll click here, and then there's going to be options of a shipment transaction type, which is a receipt of goods like what we just did, a shipment invoice, which is a receipt and match in the same step, or an invoice, which is a match to a previous receipt. We'll do an invoice match. We'll pick the vendor. We'll enter the vendor document number, and then you can either manually select or enter the POs or click on load. It'll show you all of the available purchase orders for this vendor that can be matched. Load those. You're able to enter comments for that transaction, view previous vendor comments that were entered on the requisition, add your own header comments, attach the invoices. Click on attach, choose a scanned image of the invoice, describe it, and now that's a part of this transaction as well. You've still got your GL distribution information here. You've got your distributions. You've got your tax information that can be available, as well as some other fields that you can populate. Once all of this is correct, click on Process. If it needs to route for approval, there are approval routing processes available for invoice matching as well. If it's been fully approved, then it'll create the completed transaction over in your back office, financial, or ERP system. Let's step back out here, go back in as our requester, which was FOI, and we'll come in here and we'll go find requisitions. A lot of information is available, the PO number, whether or not it's been released or not, status for each line item, item information, vendor information, the ability to find and search through all of those details, export this information out to Excel in a CSV format to manipulate it further, and then also click on the requisition, drill down, open it up, and here are the details of a fully processed requisition, the purchasing status, how many were ordered, as well as shipped and received up until this point, purchasing information, voucher number, voucher date, check number, check date, and amount paid, budget information, and then your details, which will show you submitted, changes, approved with notes, processed from review with notes to create a PO, and then received. So there's the details of a fully processed requisition that has gone through each of the steps for the user, and that completes our eProcurement demonstration today. As I mentioned before, I know that that is a fairly quick demonstration. The idea behind these weekly webinars is to give you an overview of the functionality that's available within our system, and we are certainly more than happy to do one-on-one and individual demos for you where we can focus specifically on your needs, your requirements, and your back office financial ERP system. So in just a moment, we will answer any questions that you might have, but for what I'm going to do right now is go take a look at the question box and see if there's any there. Again, thank you for your time today, and hold on just one moment for questions.